done something in the past that you are yet to pay for, and you will pay the full price for it in some way. So that's the first thing.
As a man with a keen imagination and a plethora of painfully humiliating past experiences, the world of dreams has always fascinated and horrified me in equal measure. But after a string of fairly disturbing nightmares featuring the late comedian Bernard Manning, I found myself wanting to find out why. Why do we dream, and how do their strange stories pertain to our lives? Well, let me ruin this episode before it even begins. Scientists, being the famously idiotic cretins they are, don't really have a clue. In fact, these strange semi-conscious hallucinations of REM sleep have mystified experts for centuries. But that hasn't stopped people from postulating some pretty wild theories about their purpose. So to investigate these hypotheses, I had my producer film me sleep, in a fashion totally devoid of menace, waking me up at certain intervals so we could dive headfirst into my subconscious and explore the most grotesquely revealing parts of my psyche.
What you get, Max?
What I dreamt then was that I'd come out of like church and there were these people there and they started talking about this thing and they were laughing at me and they were saying like he doesn't even know what it is, but I didn't know what it was, and I kept asking them what is it, and they kept saying that you have it, and I was getting quite upset, and I kept like sort of, I didn't know what was happening. I was sort of like checking my pants in case it was anything to do with that. And then like this person walked up who I guess was a priest, but in reality it was more like a wizard, and he just pointed at me and was like, if you don't shut the up, I'm going to turn you into a bucket. And I hadn't even said anything, so I didn't know what to respond.
Did you find out what it was?
No.
It was probably to do with your penis.
Yeah. Thousands of years ago, ancient cultures across the world developed some of the first dream theory. It was called oniromancy, a form of divination focused on using dreams to predict the future. Ancient Mesopotamians wrote literature dividing dream omens into categories and prophesizing their meaning. For instance, if a man dreamt of eating human flesh, great wealth would come to him. One horny Roman scholar hypothesized that it was totally auspicious and groovy for a man to dream of being penetrated by someone older and richer, but not so great if the penetrator in question was poor. He also warned that being penetrated by a god in a dream might lead to real-world injuries in the dreamer's rectal passage, although as long as the intercourse was pleasurable, the wound would not be fatal. He mostly wrote about penetration. Now over time, oniromancy has been labelled superstition by the scientific community, but many contemporary dream readers still offer their services in 2021. And would you believe it, I even knew a dream reader myself, my old pal Derek.
The common idea is that an alien is sticking its bare finger up your ass.
So I got in touch with Derek to get the lowdown on what consequences my priest-wizard bucket dream might have for my future.
A bucket?
A bucket.
You've obviously done something in the past, or a series of things that you are yet to pay for. Hence the religious context, I think, hence the being in the place where you are, judgment is passed. The bucket is very interesting, being turned into a bucket. What does that mean, you're going to be turned into a bucket by the priest? My inclination towards there, my inkling, is that it's a sign of you're going to sort of undergo this terrible change where you are...
A bucket?
Yeah, no, not quite a bucket, but essentially a thing into which stuff can be poured, and a thing that can be essentially just deposited and...
It just sounds like you're defining a bucket.
The bucket's interesting, and the bucket shows up a lot actually in dreams. And it's a sign of well, obviously kind of emptiness, and also kind of more of a vacuousness. And what that priest is saying is that he won't necessarily kill you or junk you into a certain form. You'll literally just be deprived of yourself, and that's what a bucket is. It's empty space. It's negative space, and that's absolutely what will be happening to you.
That's mental.
Well, it's not mental. It's very common.
I was about to be interviewed, or me and other people were about to be interviewed, but all the other people were like women in bikinis. There were like 30 of them. There was like somewhere there was a giant bathtub that I was aware of its presence, and then a guy came in who was like the interviewer and who was like, okay, like we're ready to interview everyone. One of the girls turned to me and was like, where should we do the interview? And I said we should do it in the big bathtub all together. And then we all got into this big, like, soapy bathtub, and there were loads of like bubbles everywhere. And the interviewer was coming in, and I was sort of getting ready for the interview, and it was just me and like maybe 30 or 40 women in their bikinis in the bathtub.
Goodness, what could it mean?
Now, as time went on, the scientific community decided that dreams, far from predicting the future, were totally meaningless. That was until 1900, when bad boy psychologist Sigmund Freud released a contentious essay entitled The Interpretation of Dreams. He claimed that dreams did in fact have meaning. They were the result of your dynamic unconscious, a chunky soup of repressed memories, thoughts and feelings developed from childhood. And by analysing one's own dreams, it was possible to interact with desires and conflicts you might otherwise be unaware of. Freud was also keen to point out that there was meaning even in the most ridiculous dreams. Seemingly unimportant objects could be windows into your unconscious thoughts and desires. A necktie could be emblematic of a desire for status. A kettle could be lust for your own mother. A bit of spit could be depression. I don't know, I haven't read it. Now this got me thinking about the focal points of my own dream. Perhaps the bathtub, an environment of rest and recreation, symbolised the stress of my incredibly difficult job making online videos. Could the stain on the interviewer's t-shirt mark a certain anxiety at being cleaner and more well-groomed than the people around me? Bizarrely, after approaching the idea of psychoanalytic theory with Derek, he actually focused on the bit with the sexy women.
Well, I mean, you didn't get the interview and you were just playing around with a bunch of women in a bathtub. Nothing actually gets resolved.
So do you think that will happen in real life?
No, but I think something like you will surround yourself with, as you do, surround yourself with women, and then nothing good will come out of it. It will just be a confusing and strange episode that you'll have with women who you don't know how to relate to either, and they don't really know how to relate to you.
Now strangely, whilst going through my own dreams, my producer Big Dill eventually revealed an incredibly unsettling dream of his own.
Right, so just say what you just said, but for the camera.
So I had a dream the other night where I was back to being a child. And when I was a kid, I did used to hang out with a bunch of other kids on the road. And in the dream, we went to knock on this house that had just gone up for sale. And the mum answered me, said, "You got a kid that wants to come out and play with us?" She said, "Yeah, I've got a boy, but I don't think you're going to want to play with him." Instead of a child, it was a man in white fronts and like a grubby vest with a beard. And he came outside and then started getting very amorous with a car, like kissing it and doing other things to it. And then he turned to us and was like, "Oh, like, do you want something? Like, do you want a bit of this?" And he started chasing us around the street trying to get at us. It was scary because I was a child in the dream as well, so...
Now Big Dill's dream could explain a lot about his constant oscillations between rage and insecurity, as well as his difficulty making friends. That is, if we view it through a more contemporary dream theory. Modern science has focused increasingly on the connection between dreams and memory. One theory proposes that dreams form a part of the process of storing or strengthening memories. By replaying these moments in your consciousness, the brain is attempting to preserve them as truthfully as possible. And the strangeness of dreams could be the byproduct of new memories mixing with older ones. For instance, a dream where you wee yourself in a park in front of your friends could be a blend between a memory where you went to the park with your friends and another where you weed yourself in front of your friends at the park. But more interestingly, other researchers have suggested that dreaming also helps us navigate painful past experiences. Because stress neurotransmitters are weakened during REM sleep, dreams can provide us with a space to safely explore traumatic or upsetting memories, allowing us to heal psychologically. And this theory certainly holds weight with Big Dill's creepy car fondling dream. Whilst I don't know exactly what experiences he needs to process further or whose car he fondled, it's nice to know that his horrific nightmare might have served a purpose beyond its online entertainment value.
And you are essentially a man who feels like way bigger, way clunkier, more oafish, and can't relate to other people, and as a result that turns into a serious kind of aggression.
A sexual aggression.
Sexual aggression and just outright aggression.
Right.
I had a wife, or I think it was my wife, or just like a lover, called Truffle, and we were having a baby. It was like we already knew we were having a baby, and I was quite scared about that, about the idea of having a baby. But then I found out that Truffle, rather than being a person, was actually like made entirely out of beans. She was a bean person, so she wasn't a human being. She was just like thousands of baked beans. And I was thinking like having a baby's enough, but then I'm also having a baby with like a sort of like, you know, cosmic entity that's constructed entirely out of beans. And that started to concern me a bit. And also her name turned out to actually be Beanies, not Truffle. Yeah, that dream made me want to have a vasectomy, or at least, you know, never fall in love with beans. Our final dream theory has by far the strangest provenance. Earlier this year, a team of scientists actually looked at AI to unlock the mystery of dreams. When training computer algorithms, researchers make sure to include chaotic data and anomalies in datasets to ensure the algorithm is equipped to deal with the unpredictable. This prevents overfitting, where the algorithm essentially becomes too narrow-minded to operate effectively. The researchers then translated this to the human mind, proposing the overfitted brain hypothesis, where the strangeness of dreams is actually their most advantageous feature. Wild, nonsensical and hallucinogenic imaginations like getting a baked bean person pregnant could actually be helping your brain to generalise and deal with the world's actual chaos. And in the alien world of 2021, where literally anything can happen, it's important to be equipped to deal with strange, disconcerting developments, like global pandemics or getting baked bean people pregnant. After all, you never know what tomorrow holds, or who's holding it, or who's actually just beans.
This really could mean that you are going to fall in love with somebody and have a child with them, and then it will only later be revealed that that child actually isn't yours. That's where the fear that the whenever you
okay, yeah, I miss her.
Some quite intense relationship that you have with an infant in the future will go horribly wrong, I think.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Over the past few days, I'd learned an awful lot about the world of dreams, but what struck me most was the lack of concrete answers. The science of consciousness remains exceptionally murky, and dreams might be the most confused, complex and mystifying piece of the entire puzzle. As silly the idea of omen-based dream reading might be, the other theories are just as tentative and filled with contradictions. Who's to say for sure whether Freud or AI researchers know any more than that Roman bloke obsessed with divine anal injuries? At the end of the day, dreaming remains an enigma, and maybe it should. Every night you enter a strange, potentially terrifying, and possibly sexual world of nonsense, experiencing a form of consciousness that the world's most qualified experts still can't really explain. It's one of the universe's great many mysteries, and when you think about it that way, it's sort of beautiful.
I'm not here to criticize the risk. All I am is a friend, your friend till the end. All I am is a friend, your friend till the end.
See, Mac, see. Time together.